late night for me. Yes, I just have a few questions for you. That's all I need today.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm happy to
and you,
help.
so what's your company's name?
My company's name is Johnston Litavski Limited, and it's the two main names are my original partner, Paul Johnston, who has since retired, and of course mine.
So Johnston.
Johnston, so that's Johnston, and then my last
Hmm.
name, which is the toughest one to spell, that's Litav, as in Victor, SKI Limited.
Hmm. And where's the location?
Well, our office is in Oakville. It's funny though, these days, with so much work being virtual, it doesn't really seem to matter where we are. But we do work throughout the 416 and the 905, like the GTA area, and other
Yeah,
work really all around Southern Ontario.
that's cool. What's your exact job title?
Oh, it's all very fancy. It's a managing partner. I'm a partner in the firm.
Hmm.
And but yeah, at the end of the day, we are land use planners. We do development planning.
So just a land use planner. That's really
Yeah.
cool. And like so as an urban planner, you decide what to trade, right?
Sorry, Brendan, could you say
Like
that again? It broke up just a little bit. That's
as an
probably on
urban
my end,
planner,
but
you decide like what building goes where and stuff, and like how real estate is, right?
well, it truth is now this is probably going to be a lengthier answer than you were expecting, but the reality is urban planners can do a wide variety of things, or at least they get involved in a wide variety of or lots of different aspects of land development. So absolutely, there are planners out there that often sort of refer to as, doing the vision thing. They come up with longer term plans for portions of a city, neighborhoods, or sometimes like entire cities themselves. And the idea is to work with all sorts of other professionals to come up with an idea of where that city will be in 25, 30, 40 years, whatever it is. And usually those kinds of plans, though, are at a pretty high level. But then planning is a very public process. There are a lot of public meetings. And so there are a whole subset of planners that specialize in organizing public events and conveying all this information to the public in large presentations or individual meetings, whatever it is, all sorts of different venues. And then getting that information back and plugging that into the process. And then there's planners like me. I work, you know, down in the weeds. I work in development approvals. So I work directly with landowners, homeowners, sometimes municipalities, and reviewing individual proposals and making sure that they comply with all the visions and policies of council and just securing navigating all those approvals. That's what I tend to do.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know there's like it was that di different. That's really cool. I didn't know that. And that wasn't a question. I was just curious. Also, what are the responsibilities for your job? Like, can you give a description of that?
Responsibilities for my job, I guess. Well, I guess I have two levels of responsibilities. One, at the end of the day, it's my business. I have a new partner who works with me, and my original partner Paul is retired. My new partner Brandon, we together are responsible and just managing the company and attracting new clients and just making sure that the company is profitable and that kind of administrative aspect. So that is an important aspect of my job. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
I'm also a practicing planner. So I work directly with the clients and on all sorts of things, whether it's giving them advice on how their property can and should develop, what kind of opportunities are there on their property to intensify it, get extra density, whatever the case is, give them advice there. actually take it through the approval process. And sometimes I act as an expert witness and I give
That's cool.
evidence at tribunals because that's an odd way, an odd aspect of our particular approval system is that there are such things as appeals of decisions, and those end up in a tribunal that acts and looks very much like a court. And I act as a witness in that case. So lots of different things that I do in my job.
Yeah, that's really cool, and it's like a lot of freedom in that.
Hmm. So, well, this is I'm curious. Just so you had this is all for a geography course of yours, right?
Yeah, we're doing a project where you have to find a person with a job related to geography and then interview them about that because they want you to learn more about jobs in geography. I always thought geology was really cool too.
Okay, cool, cool. So, what else would might you
Sorry,
like to know?
sorry, you cut out there.
What else might you like to know?
How many hours a week does this job require? Is it like a 9 to 5 thing or?
um, I'm chuckling because sure, it's an office job, and ostensibly the hours are kind of their regular business hours are 9 to 5. But at the end of the day, it's my business. So, and clients don't always work 9 to 5. So, the reality is it's not unusual at all to be doing work at all times. Um, for example, this weekend, I'm behind in a couple of letters and other projects that I promised to give some responses to my clients. So yeah, after this call, I got a day's worth of work ahead of me. So, um, but that also I find is the joy of having your own business in the sense that it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but you can also
Mhm.
set your own hours, and so there is some flexibility there. I'm working today on a Saturday, but there's lots of times when I can, let's say, if I need to uh, not work a whole day during the week. Let's say just I can work when I need to.
Do you think setting your own hours makes you work more or work less?
The truth is, I think that depends more on your personality. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people who are very disciplined and defined in their work life that say these are the hours that I'm going to work and I have my own time outside of it. Me, I tend to be more flexible. Um, so yeah, I do tend to work a lot, always have. Um, so I know my habit has been to work more.
Hmm. That's cool. What kind of education training is required for it? So like, do you have to, what college do you go to, with stuff like that?
Well, here in Ontario, there are, let's see, two undergraduate schools of planning. There's the School of Planning at Waterloo, and there's the School of Planning at TMU. And they're both very good schools. And through those, you can get an undergraduate degree specializing in urban planning. And I went to the University of Waterloo here, and um, and that's actually by far the largest planning school in Ontario. Probably, I think even Canada. Most planners seem to come from Waterloo. Having said that, there are other avenues. There are lots of people who will take a geography degree, for example, specializing in geography or geology or something else, but then go into planning at the master's level. And there's quite a few schools that do offer masters in planning, and that's another way you can get into the field.
That's cool. Sorry about that. Sorry if this is a personal question, but they required me to ask this. Like, what is the typical salary of the occupation? What factors after the salary?
Salaries can range. So I'm just gonna think of, let's say, a starting salary.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, as you get senior, there's opportunities to make more, clearly. But I'd say a starting salary can range quite a bit. It can go anywhere from, I'd say, 65, that's probably on the low end, up to maybe 90,000 first opening position. It can depend on the location and the kind of work and the company that you're working for.
Okay. What geographic knowledge and skills would you need to work in this location? Like, what's like need to know stuff?
Need to know stuff. And now you said geographic skills, like skills from
Yeah,
geography.
like yeah, like
Uh,
would you need a compass or anything like that?
well, I'd say, well, clearly you need a very good command of language. Um, I know that's not really a geography skill, that's a very general skill, but planning is really all about communication. You're trying to develop a vision and communicate that vision to people and get buy-in on that vision. No matter what kind of planning you're doing, whether it's the development planning, the visionary planning, public consultation, whatever it is, ultimately your job is to tell the story of development. You're trying to craft that story with people and then reach agreement on that story. And so you really got to be able to communicate. That's one. Geographically speaking as well, it's a geographical profession. You need to have to have sort of a good spatial understanding of things. Being able to read and understand maps and drawings is pretty key. And having an understanding of demographics. It's going to sound funny, but I call planning one of the last great generalist professions. And the reason why I say that is planners in the end, like I said, our job is to tell the story, to craft the book of a development. We work with virtually all the other professions. We work with architects, landscape architects, lawyers, civil engineers, transportation engineers, geologists, hydrogeologists, archaeological professionals, heritage experts. Each of them have their own chapter in the book, but it's our job to know enough about every one of those individual professions, those specialties, so that we can take their chapters and craft them into a story that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why in terms of skills, you need a little bit of everything to be a planner. You need to know a little bit about all the other professions. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that makes sense actually. It's like there's a lot to the job. Like it goes through a long process.
Yeah.
What kind of technology do you use in your job?
Uh, clearly, since certainly in my job, communication is important. So all your standard communicative tools of writing and office and video calls and all that. But in terms of more detailed technology, certainly you need to have an understanding of CAD. There's an awful lot of drawings that you have to be able to process. You need to know about online GIS systems. Um, you need to be able to research, need to understand where to find the information and to have the tenacity and patience to dig for it, whether it's online or in person. I miss the days of sitting in a municipal archive and leaping through all the old books and stuff, because I don't know, I was a glutton for that kind of punishment. I love that. But in terms of other tools, um, those are the ones that come immediately to mind. I'm probably missing some important ones, but yeah.
Yeah. I have a question. What's CAD? You mentioned that one.
CAD, computer aided design. So it's digital drafting software. AutoCAD is by far the most common. In fact, it dominates Virtually everyone that does any kind of design work uses that. Similar ones are programs like SketchUp. That's another
Hmm.
common one that's used. GIS, see, I'm not a GIS guy. I work with folks who do that. And so I need to have an understanding of how to use it, but I don't craft it. I mean, people far smarter than me do that kind of work.
All right. Uh, what like interpersonal skills are required for this? So obviously you said like you need a lot of communication and a lot of collaboration with the people you work with and also the other people like lawyers and stuff around you.
Well, it's collaboration. I think you hit the word right there, collaboration. It's being able to form, build, and nurture those kinds of relationships with the many, many, many different people you have to work with. So again, I'm leaning on my own particular expertise and experience, and that is as a development planner. So I have to work pretty closely with all sorts of municipal staff from all sorts of different departments. There is a huge suite of consultants that I've worked with over the years that you just have to get to know, form that relationship with, because you're going to be working closely with them. And ultimately, one thing I have to admit, I have to stress here is that as technical a craft as planning may seem, when I'm, working on development approvals and dealing with all these consultants and other experts, at the end of the day, it is a political decision. It's the municipal council, the politicians that make the ultimate decisions. So we as experts and technicians can craft a case and a story and make a recommendation, but we don't ultimately decide. It's up to the
Hmm.
politicians acting on behalf of the public to make that final decision. So despite all the technicalities, it is ultimately a political process. So you have to have that kind of awareness as well, because it's not unusual to also have to deal with, the local counselors, to call them up
Hmm.
and to sell or at least explain what the project that you're trying to do and get them on side. And that's a much more subjective thing to do rather than just, let's say, figuring out the right design aspect or landscaping or engineering solution, whatever that is. So that's all part of it.
Are there who are like have you ever called any politicians or gone through any process of any politicians like around here?
Sorry, Brendan, could you say that again? It broke up a little bit.
Have you ever gone through a political process with any politicians around here?
Um, I've gone through, yeah, it's not unusual to know that the politicians are not on your side.
Hmm.
And for that matter, it's very common to have a strong opinion in support of an application and but also know that the city staff, not just the politicians, but the staff at the municipality are not on side. They disagree with you. And you go through the whole process knowing that they are opposing you. And sometimes you can convince them otherwise. Sometimes you can convince the politician otherwise, even though you may not convince staff, you can convince the politician to rule against staff and in your favor. Or oftentimes you will go through the process knowing you're not going to get that kind of support at the municipality, that it will be turned down. But this is where that appeal process I mentioned comes in, where you then have the opportunity to appeal that refusal to a tribunal. In this case, it's called the Interior Land Tribunal. And that is, and you might be able to secure your approval there. And this harkens all back to the key issue, communication, being able to tell your story and convince people of that story.
Hmm. What other personal interests and like characteristics are important for working this job? Like, what other interests do you need to work as an urban planner?
Personal interests?
Yeah.
Um, I can tell you mine. It's funny, everyone seems to approach it from a slightly different angle. It's, a very personal thing. I've just always enjoyed architecture. I've enjoyed uh, city life and being down in the city. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time going downtown, Toronto. Even though I always lived in Oakville or this area around here, very much a suburban kid. Uh, my parents and I would often take the train downtown. There was a lot of, you know, spent a lot of time, and I just always loved it. It was fascinating. It was exciting. It was seeing the public spaces, and for whatever reason, that always appealed to me. The old buildings, the new buildings, that the whole architecture of it all. Um, Likewise, I personally had sort of an interest in design. Um, In fact, the whole reason why I got into planning was actually kind of a mistake on my part. When I was like starting from when I think I was 8 years old, I wanted to be an architect. I honestly thought I was going to be an architect. That was my dream. I love buildings, designing things. I love drawings. I love the whole aspect of it. But around, and your dad might be able to corroborate this, around grade 11 and 12, my math and science mark kind of fell out the window. Um, so um, I just didn't have the marks to get into architecture. And I can remember being in grade 12 thinking, okay, what the heck am I going to do now? And it just so happened Waterloo was one of the best architecture schools at the time. I knew that faculty well and learned that there was a school of planning in the same faculty as Waterloo architecture. I didn't know much about it. I applied to planning at Waterloo, honestly thinking that it was a backdoor into architecture, that at some point I'd be able to, despite my mark, move from planning into architecture. And I got to tell you, I was wrong. That wasn't possible. It was, but thankfully, fortunately, I was in the planning school and learning more about it. I grew to like it. I realized it also appealed to me, and I'm glad I stuck with it. It's whereas architecture, I always characterize the designs from the outside walls in. Planning kind of goes from the outside walls out. Just it's just planning. I could conceive of planning like it was like architecture, but on a much larger canvas. So that's what attracted me to it.
Yeah, that's really cool. My next question actually was gonna be what got you into it, but I guess that's it. You didn't really mean to get into it. You discovered it because you want to be an architect, but then you found out you love this just as much.
Yep. Yeah, and amazingly, I had approached it because I loved architecture because I've always had a certain eye for design and drawing and all that. I loved drafting in high school. Um, but in planning, I learned that I enjoyed the legal aspects of it and the political aspects of it. And that's ultimately what I really found my strength in. And so I was just very fortunate.
So, yeah, this is my last question, but how long have you specifically been an urban planner?
Eef. Man, I'm gonna feel old now. I graduated in 95. And for that matter, actually, Waterloo is a co-op program. So I started working in the planning field, I'd say around 92. So how long is that? 32 years?
20, 20 years.
Yeah. That's how long I've been in planning. I joined the company I'm at now in November 2000. So that's 24 years that I've been here. Became a partner in 2008. So yeah, been at it for a while.
Yeah. So my last question here, is do you have any advice for me or anyone else just on like if you don't know what you're gonna do, but you're thinking about something in geology, do you have any advice to that for anyone?
Hmm. Good question. I think I don't know. I'm sure you've heard this before. I'm sure everyone's heard this before. I mean, yes, indeed. The one story you hear all the time is that you got to do what you love, then it's not
Mhm.
really work. Um, there are a fortunate few who really do find that, fall into a career that encapsulates everything that they love and all that. But and not everyone is that lucky. But having said that, you still need to really enjoy some aspect of it. You really need to be really has to appeal to you. So whether
Mhm.
it's planning, whether it's any other undertaking, and you have to feel, it has to be a field that you're going to feel confident in, that you'll be able to build the kind of life that you want outside of work. Um,
Mhm.
It's funny. The story that I'm thinking of is my own when I was in a position similar to yours. I would have way back then in the dark ages, so we still had grade 13. And
Oh yeah.
so yeah, Will and I had grade 13. And the reality is, side note, like I actually had to miss half of grade 12. So um there was an operation I needed. So I missed half of grade 12. So I actually went back for what I call grade 13 and a half. So I was held back a little bit. And throughout that whole time, I was trying to decide what the heck I wanted to do. And I ultimately had two very different paths to follow. One was the planning path, just as I had told you, that it was an opportunity I thought to get into kind of architecture and all that, but it was let's call it a more proper, honest to God, 9 to 5 career. The other one, I've always loved photography, and I could very easily have gone down that route instead. I applied to Ryerson and was accepted in their photojournalism course. And I had, so where I'm going with this, you asking me what do you should do for a career? I ended up interviewing two two photographers and two planners. I had a sat down, kind of like what you're doing right now. I met
Yeah.
with each of them to try to figure out what the heck do I want to do? So what did they do? What was their story? And um, it's funny. The planners thought, "Oh yeah, it's a great thing. It's a lot of fun and all that. You know, we're really busy and all that, and you'll have a good life. You'll earn an income and all that." And they were doing pretty good for themselves. And then I visited the photographers, and they're all saying, "Oh, it's a cool career and it's great and all that, but unless you're the best of the best, expect to live in poverty for the next 15 years." So um, that kind of sold me on planning, and
Yeah. Get too high.
and so that just harkens back to that. You got to really enjoy what you have to do, but it also has to be the kind of career that you can support yourself and build a life around. I
Yeah.
know
Do
that's a
what's good
very
for you.
yeah, it's a very conservative point of view. I know there are many folks out there that believe the other thing, just follow your passion and the money and life will follow. And you know what? Hey, that might work for them. I chose a more traditional conservative path and wanted to be able to feed myself for the first 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all my questions. Do you have any questions for me or anything?
No, I don't think so. I just hope it's been helpful. If there's anything else that you need, I'm happy to chat.
No, no, I think I got everything, but it's been really great. Thank you so much. I never knew half of what urban planning was. I never knew it went through all that process and stuff, or process and stuff for all those different jobs, all the politics about behind it. So that was actually really cool to me. I really had a new perspective of what that was today. So I really want to thank you so much for that, and thank you for letting me interview you. That was really fun.
Oh no, hey, no, well, thank you. I had fun. I appreciate it. And don't worry, I had no idea what planning was when I went into it either, so that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, hey, thanks, Brendan. I hope you get a great mark on your project.
yeah,
And
I'll
yeah,
try. All right, have a
okay.
great day.
You too. Say bye to your dad for me.
Well, I've been watching how the night
Brendan,
comes
you got a shark.
down.
Look at this.
I got to feeling like a under